Not perfect, just quiet. Lunchboxes on the counter. A calendar full of harmless plans. The kind of peace that smells like laundry detergent and convinces you you're safe because nothing is happening. That was my world, and I guarded it with routines and small compromises. I measured motherhood in tiny details, crusts cut off because Lily liked her sandwiches smooth, a spare hair tie in my purse, the way I could tell from her footsteps if she was tired or thrilled. Lily was 7, still small enough to curl into my side, old enough to argue that a unicorn shirt was not babyish. She laughed loudly. She loved her dad completely. And I was the kind of wife who believed marriage was maintenance. Fix the leak before it stains the ceiling. Ignore the creak in the floorboard because ripping up the whole hallway is exhausting. If my husband forgot an anniversary, I told myself he showed love in other ways. If he got tight-lipped about his family, I didn't push. If his phone lit up and he turned the screen away, I pretended not to see, because pretending is a kind of peace. Friday started ordinary. The morning rush. The last-minute search for a missing library book. A kiss on Lily's forehead as she skipped to the car. My husband waved, drove away, and the house settled into its familiar hum. I work from home, so my day is stitched together by emails and interruptions. Coffee I forget to drink. A sink that never stays empty. The refrigerator's low, steady noise. At noon, my husband texted, picking Lily up early, taking her to see my aunt. She's been asking. I stared at the message until the words felt wrong. His aunt. He had relatives, sure, but they stayed at the edge of our life, mentioned, rarely present. In 7 years of marriage, I'd met a couple of cousins at a rushed holiday dinner and one uncle who hugged too hard. His mother had died before I met him. Any talk of his father ended in silence. But an aunt who'd been asking to see my child. It should have sounded normal, family visiting family. Instead, something in my chest tightened. I typed, "Which aunt?" then deleted it. I typed, "Where?" then deleted that too. Because the quiet life I'd built had rules, and one of them was, don't ask questions that might start a storm. So I sent, "Okay, have fun," and tried to move on. The rational part of me nodded. Harmless. A visit, a hug, maybe a photo. The irrational part didn't relax. It was the timing. He never picked Lily up early unless the school called. It was the phrasing. "She's been asking." Lily told me everything. If she'd been begging to see someone, I would have known. Maybe it was a surprise, I told myself. Maybe he was trying. Then he called. His voice was too cheerful, almost light. Behind him, I heard Lily humming. "Hey," he said, "we're gonna head out soon." "Out where?" I asked, casual on the outside, counting heartbeats on the inside. "To my aunt's," he answered quickly. "It'll be good for Lily, you know, family." Family, he said it like a password. "Want me to meet you?" I asked. A pause, small but sharp. "No," he said too fast. "It's last minute, don't worry, we'll be back by dinner." Dinner, routine, a return to normal. But he didn't sound like himself. Usually his words came easy. Today they were clipped, stacked tight, like he was afraid one might fall. And then he got soft. "Hey, I love you. Thanks for being cool about this." Being cool, as if I'd earned something for not asking. He hung up before I could answer. For a minute I just stood there with my phone in my hand. The kitchen clock ticked, steady and indifferent. Sunlight poured through the window. I tried to work, but my eyes slid over the screen without absorbing anything. My body had gone alert in a way it never did for deadlines. Without thinking, I walked into Lily's room. Her bed was unmade, a stuffed rabbit half buried in the blankets. On her dresser sat a drawing from last week, 3 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. Me, Lily, Dad, all smiling, all the same height. I pressed my palm to the paper like it could anchor me. There was no proof anything was wrong, no evidence, just a feeling I couldn't name. And that scared me most. Fear without a reason is easy to dismiss. Call it anxiety, imagination. But fear without a reason is also what creeps in before you see the knife. I told myself to breathe, to trust my husband the way I always had. Still, I found myself at the window. His car wasn't in the driveway. The street looked ordinary, and yet the quiet life I loved started to tilt, just slightly. Somewhere out there, my husband was taking our daughter to visit his aunt. And I couldn't shake the thought that the word aunt was a cover for something else. I didn't know what. I only knew that the quiet didn't feel like safety anymore. So I did the thing I never do. I started replaying every detail, searching for cracks. It felt like the calm right before something breaks. I told myself I was overreacting, but my body didn't believe me. My hands kept moving, wiping a counter that was already clean, refolding a towel that didn't need fixing, while my mind circled the same question like a moth around a porch light. Which aunt? It wasn't the visit that bothered me. It was the vagueness. He, said my aunt the way someone says the airport, like it didn't require a name, an address, a history. In 7 years, his family had been mostly shadows at the edge of our life. Holidays were polite, short, and never at anyone's house. No warm invitations, no casual drop-ins, so why now? And why my daughter alone with him, with me excluded? I pulled up our old family chat out of sheer stubbornness, scrolling for any mention that could soothe me. Cousins, uncles, birthdays, emojis, noise, I searched the word aunt. Almost nothing. No familiar auntie's place. No, auntie says hi. It didn't prove anything, but it didn't comfort me either. I checked my phone again. No location. No, we're here. He usually sent a quick photo, Lily's grin, a thumbs up, proof of life disguised as sweetness. Today was silence. Then my phone buzzed, a video call from him. Relief hit first, quick and stupid, like my heart wanted to be wrong. I answered, forcing my voice light. Hey, everything okay? His face appeared for a second too close, then he angled the camera toward Lily. She was in her booster seat, cheeks pink, eyes bright. Hi, Mommy. Hi, baby. My fear softened at the sound of her. Where are you two? In the car, she said proudly. My husband's voice came from off camera. We're heading out, just wanted to say hi. He didn't show his face again. That was odd. He loved being seen as the good dad. Lily leaned closer to the screen, whispering like it was a delicious secret. Daddy said I have to be extra good today. Extra good, I echoed, smiling while my stomach tightened. Why? Because it's important, she said solemnly. Then her grin returned. And because I get a surprise. A surprise, I tried to laugh. What kind? She glanced toward my husband for permission. I heard his hushed words, too low to catch, then Lily announced, I'm getting a bracelet, a pretty one, Daddy promised. A bracelet shouldn't have mattered. It was small, harmless, the kind of thing you buy to make a boring day feel magical. But my husband never bought Lily jewelry. He called it grown-up stuff and rolled his eyes when my sister gave Lily a tiny necklace. So why now? I kept my voice soft. That's exciting, honey. Who's giving you the bracelet? Lily hesitated. Her eyes flicked away and back. Auntie, she said, and the words sounded practiced. Auntie who? I pushed gently. My husband cut in too smooth. Baby, we're driving. Reception might get spotty. We'll talk later, okay? He reached for the phone, but Lily held it tighter. Mommy, she protested. Then, in a rush of confession that felt almost like panic, she blurted, her name is Surrey. The air left my lungs. Surrey. I had never heard that name. Not once. Not in passing, not in a story from his childhood, not in any of the carefully edited history he shared with me. Surrey, I repeated, because I needed to hear it again to believe it. Lily nodded hard. Yeah, Auntie Surrey. Daddy said she's really nice and I have to call her Auntie, and I can't tell you until later. Until later. The phrase landed like a stone. Kids didn't invent rules like that. Someone had handed it to her and wrapped it in excitement so she wouldn't notice it was secrecy. My husband finally swung the camera back to himself. His smile was wide, almost aggressive. She's just excited, he said. You know how she is. I watched his eyes, not his mouth. His eyes were flat, warning eyes, stop. I could have stopped. I could have laughed, said okay, and waited for dinner like a normal wife protecting a normal life. That was always my talent, turning discomfort into silence. But my daughter was still there, trusting both of us completely. I forced my voice steady. "Lily, sweetheart, what did Daddy say this visit is for?" She brightened. "To meet Auntie Surrey, and she has a house with a big gate and—" "Okay," my husband snapped too loud. The screen jolted as he took the phone. "We've gotta go, love you." The call ended. For a moment I stared at the black screen, my reflection hovering in it like a ghost. I looked normal. That was the sickest part. My face didn't match what I felt. A big gate. No address. No name until today. No invitation for me. And now a new aunt with a real name and a rule of secrecy. My brain tried to build excuses. Maybe Surrey was a nickname. Maybe she was a family friend. Maybe he didn't want me there because he was embarrassed. About money, about the neighborhood, about whatever secret he kept tucked under his tongue. But my instincts didn't whisper. They screamed. I went to the closet, grabbed my keys, then froze with them in my hand. What was I doing? Following my husband like a stranger, spying like the kind of wife I swore I'd never become. Trust, I told myself, is what holds a family together. And then another thought answered, quiet but unbreakable. Safety is what keeps it alive. I wasn't chasing drama. I wasn't hunting proof to punish him. I just needed to know where my child was going, who Surrey was, and why my husband had turned secrecy into a game. So I slipped on my shoes without tying them properly, grabbed my purse, and walked out like I was running a normal errand. Only my hands were shaking. As I got into my car, I realized this wasn't just a decision to follow them. It was the first crack in my loyalty. The first time I chose my instinct over my marriage, my daughter's safety over my husband's comfort. I started the engine and pulled away from the curb, praying I was paranoid. And terrified I wasn't at all. I found them 3 blocks from the school, like my fear had dropped a pin on the map. His silver sedan was unmistakable, same dent near the rear bumper, same faded sticker from Lily's first ballet recital clinging to the back window. Seeing it didn't calm me. It made everything real. I stayed far enough back that I could pretend this was coincidence. 2 cars on a weekday afternoon rolling through the same streets. Normal, ordinary, nothing to see. But I wasn't fooled by my own lies anymore. My palms were slick on the steering wheel. I kept checking my rearview mirror, convinced someone would notice me, even though no one was chasing me. The danger wasn't behind me. It was in front, shaped like the man I trusted. At the next light, he signaled right, heading away from our neighborhood. That made sense at first. If he was going across town, he'd take the main road. If he was visiting family, he'd go where family lived. Then he skipped the main road. Instead of turning toward the residential area he'd once waved at, "Somewhere over there," he'd said, he kept going straight, deeper into the older part of town where the sidewalks cracked and the storefronts were half empty. My stomach tightened. Maybe his aunt moved, I told myself. People move all the time. But the route wasn't just different. It was practiced. He drove like he knew exactly where he was going, like he'd been there before, like the map was already inside him. I tried to keep my speed steady, but my foot kept hovering between gas and brake. Every time he changed lanes, I changed lanes a beat later. Every time he slowed, I slowed. I became a shadow of my own husband, and the shame of it stung. This is what wives do when they stop trusting, a voice in my head hissed. This is how marriages die. Another voice answered, steadier. This is what mothers do when something doesn't fit. I pictured Lily in her booster seat, legs swinging, her mouth forming the name Surrey like it was candy. I pictured her small hand reaching for a bracelet while adults turned secrecy into a game, and I kept driving. The farther we went, the less familiar the streets became. Landmarks disappeared, the park with the duck pond, the grocery store where Lily begged for expensive cereal, the coffee shop I loved. It all fell away like scenery from a life I suddenly didn't recognize. He turned onto the on-ramp for the highway. My throat went dry. His aunt wasn't across town. She was out of town. I could still turn back. I could still decide made a mistake, and returned to my kitchen and my quiet rules. I could still be the wife who waits for dinner and believes whatever story is served. But my hands didn't move toward the exit. They tightened. I merged behind him, leaving enough cars between us to make it look accidental. A red truck slid into the gap, then a white van. I let them. I needed distance, not closeness. I needed to see without being seen. The highway stretched ahead, a ribbon of gray cutting through the afternoon. My husband's car stayed in the left lane, passing slower traffic like he was late for something. He never drove like that with me. With me, he played careful. Today, he moved with purpose. My heartbeat didn't just race. It argued with itself. He's taking her to meet someone, I told myself. That's all. A family friend, an awkward reunion, a complicated relative he didn't want to explain. Then my mind offered darker answers, uninvited and sharp. Maybe he didn't invite you because you're the obstacle. I forced my shoulders down and loosened my grip. If I drove panicked, I'd make mistakes. If I made mistakes, I'd lose them. And if I lost them, I'd be left with nothing but imagination and regret. We passed the city limits sign. Buildings thinned. Billboards replaced storefronts. The sky looked whiter out here, like there was nowhere to hide. I glanced at my phone when traffic slowed, then shoved it face down. I didn't want to call. I didn't want to text. Anything I did could alert him. I needed to be quiet. Silence, the same tool he'd been using on me. He took exit 14. The sign flashed by too quickly for me to read at first, and panic sparked. I almost missed it. I signaled, slid over, and followed the stream of cars off the highway, my pulse hammering like I'd jumped from a height. The road narrowed, trees thickened. The neighborhood that appeared wasn't suburban. It was patchwork, old warehouses, empty lots, a gas station with bars on the windows. Not the kind of place you imagine when someone says family visit. I tried to argue with myself again. Plenty of good people lived in places like this. Plenty of homes had gates. Fear could be unfair. But my dread wasn't about the area. It was about my husband's voice on that call, the way he'd cut Lily off the second she started describing details. He turned left at a stop sign without hesitating. I turned left too, but later letting another car cut in between us. I kept swallowing air like it was too thin. My mind kept flipping between pictures. Lily laughing, Lily crying. Lily safe, Lily trapped. My husband smiling, my husband cold. The road became smaller, a two-lane stretch that curved away from town. Fewer houses, more fields. The afternoon light slanted low, turning everything gold and deceptive. He slowed. A turn signal blinked. Right. The right turn wasn't onto a neighborhood street. It was onto a gravel road marked by a faded sign I couldn't read, half hidden by weeds. Beyond it stood a chain-link fence, and farther back, a squat building with no windows facing the road. My breath caught. My hands started to shake again, harder this time. He didn't belong here. Lily didn't belong here. And neither did I, except I did now, because I was the only one who had followed the truth this far. I drove past the entrance, pretending I hadn't seen him turn. My heart slammed against my ribs as I checked my mirror and watched his car disappear behind the fence line. At the next bend, I pulled onto the shoulder, tucked behind a cluster of trees. I sat there, engine running, staring at dust drifting in the air like smoke. I could still leave. I could still go home and wait and let him return with explanations. But something inside me had crossed a line, quiet and irreversible. If this was a mistake, I'd apologize later. If it wasn't, I'd never forgive myself ever. I put the car in drive, made a slow U-turn, and headed back toward that gravel road. No turning back. I rolled onto the gravel road like I was entering a different life, one where routines couldn't protect me and instincts were the only map. The tires crunched in the quiet, and the sound felt like an announcement. Chain-link fencing ran along the road on my left, topped with rusted wire. On my right, trees leaned inward, branches tangled like they were trying to hide the path. No mailbox, no welcome sign, no neighborhood hum, just dust and silence. 100 yards ahead, My husband's car slowed and turned through an opening in the fence. A metal gate stood there, half open, not the kind you leave casual and swinging. It was the kind you control. I didn't follow straight through. I kept going until the road widened near an abandoned pull-off where weeds poked through cracked asphalt. I killed my engine and let the quiet settle over me. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I pressed them flat against my thighs, but the fear kept climbing into my throat. Lily's voice replayed in my head, her careful whisper. I can't tell you until later, and the word later sounded like a lock. I slid out of my car and stepped into shade. The air smelled like sun-baked dirt and something chemical, like old paint or gasoline. Far off, a dog barked once and then went quiet. I walked back along the fence, keeping low, every step a choice. Through the links I could see the property, a wide yard scattered with gravel and scrub, and beyond it a building that made no sense at all for an ant. It wasn't a home. No porch, no flower beds, no curtains you could imagine someone pulling aside. The structure was long and low, like a converted office or storage unit given a front door. Its windows, what few there were narrow and high, placed where you couldn't easily look out or in. Some were covered from the inside with dark panels. My husband's sedan was parked near the entrance. Beside it sat a black SUV, newer and expensive in a way that didn't belong out here. A third car lurked farther back, half hidden behind the building. A woman stood near the door, slim, hair pulled tight, wearing sunglasses even in shade. Beside her stood a man with his hands in his pockets, posture loose, face unreadable. They looked like people waiting for something, not family welcoming family. Then my husband stepped out of the driver's seat. For a heartbeat, seeing him there, solid and familiar, almost cracked my fear. He was wearing the blue shirt I'd folded that morning, the one with the small tear near the cuff I kept meaning to mend. But then he moved to the back door, and his motions were too smooth, too practiced, like he'd rehearsed the sequence. Open, unbuckle, guide. He leaned in, smiling as Lily climbed out, her sneakers landing in the dust. Lily looked around with the bright curiosity of a child who assumes the world is safe. She bounced once, excited, as if this was a treat and not a fenced property that swallowed sound. My husband took her hand, firm, steering, not just holding. He bent down, spoke close to her ear, and Lily nodded hard, solemn again. That nod turned my stomach. It wasn't a say thank you nod. It was a remember the rule nod. He straightened and looked toward the woman in sunglasses. She smiled, but it didn't reach her cheeks. I pressed closer to the fence, cold metal imprinting against my forearm. The links scratched my skin, and I welcomed the sting because it proved I was awake. The woman crouched to Lily's height and held out her hand, palm up, offering something small. Lily's face lit, then she glanced back at my husband, checking him first. He nodded. Permission. Lily reached into the woman's hand and pulled back a tiny object that flashed in the light, a bracelet, exactly as promised. My chest tightened. A gift is supposed to be kindness, but a gift given with secrecy is a hook. The woman touched Lily's hair, quick and possessive, like she was confirming something. Lily didn't flinch. She trusted the world too much. My husband's hand stayed on Lily's shoulder, guiding her forward. He didn't look like a man visiting an elderly aunt. He looked like a man delivering something precious. An engine approached, then the crunch of tires on gravel. A fourth car came through the gate, slow and deliberate, stopping near the building. A man stepped out carrying a folder. He walked with purpose, not like family, more like business. My mind scrambled for the least terrifying answer. Counseling, a reunion, a secret I wasn't supposed to see. But my body didn't buy noble. The front door opened, and for a moment the inside showed. Dim, shadowed, no warm light spilling out. An air conditioning unit hummed, low and constant, the only steady sound like the building itself was breathing. The woman stepped aside and gestured Lily inside. My husband leaned down and kissed Lily's forehead. In any other place, it would have been tender. Here, it felt like an instruction. Lily took a step toward the doorway. She turned once, her eyes drifting toward the yard, toward the fence line, as if she sensed something. My heart stopped. For half a second, I thought she might see me. Then my husband shifted, blocking her view with his body, and her attention snapped back to him, to the safe place she believed he was. He guided her inside. The door closed behind them with a soft click, not a slam, just a quiet seal, and the property went still again, the silence swallowing even the memory of Lily's voice. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until my lungs burned. I exhaled slow, shaky, and the air tasted like metal. This is where I run, I told myself. This is where I call for help, but my feet wouldn't move. My mind kept trying to force the world back into the shape of normal, while my body screamed that normal had already been left behind. I stared at that closed door like it was the edge of a cliff. And somewhere deep in me, a colder fear took root. What if he never planned to bring her back the way he promised? The fence between us wasn't just metal. It was a line between the life I thought I had and the truth I was about to touch. I wiped my damp palms on my jeans, stepped away from the trees, and started toward the gate, telling myself I would only get closer, only look, only confirm. Just one more step, and then another, until the quiet felt like it was pressing on my skin. The gate was closer now, and I could see the details my fear had blurred. A padlock hanging open like it had been unlocked for them, a small camera fixed on the entrance, a faded sign that warned TRESPSSERS in a tone meant for strangers. Gravel shifted under my shoes, loud in the hush, and my stomach rolled as if my body already knew what my mind refused to name. I kept waiting for my phone to ring, for him to laugh and say, "Got you, just a surprise." But the only sound was the AC hum, steady and cold. I reached for the latch, and my fingers went numb, as if the metal stole courage. The latch gave under my fingers with a quiet clink, and I stepped through the gate like I was stepping out of my own skin. The yard looked harmless from a distance, just gravel, scrub, a few sun-bleached pallets stacked near the building, but up close it felt arranged, controlled. I kept to the edge, moving where the shadows from the fence fell longest. My breath sounded too loud in my ears. Every few seconds I expected my husband to swing the door open and catch me, his face twisting into the anger I'd only seen when life didn't go his way. But the door stayed shut. The hum of the air conditioning stayed steady. The place kept swallowing sound. I told myself to be smart, get proof, get Lily, leave. Then I reached the building and realized there was nowhere to peek in, no friendly windows, no thin curtains. Just those narrow panes set high, some covered with dark panels. Whoever built this place didn't want eyes on the inside. Except one window wasn't fully covered. It was on the side, half hidden by a leaning sheet of corrugated metal, like an afterthought. A strip of glass showed through, cloudy with dust. I crouched, my knees grinding into gravel, and inched closer until I could see a sliver of the room beyond. At first, I saw nothing but dim light and shapes. Then my eyes adjusted, and my stomach dropped so hard it felt like I'd fallen. There was a table in the middle of the room, and around it sat my husband, the woman from outside, Surrey, and the man with the folder. A second man stood near the wall, arms folded, watching. A laptop glowed open. Papers were spread across the table in neat stacks. Corners aligned like this was an office, not a family visit. My husband's posture was wrong, not relaxed, not visiting. He sat forward, elbows on the table, jaw tight, hands moving in short, decisive gestures. He looked like he was closing a deal. Surrey slid a document toward him. Even from my angle, I could make out the bold letters at the top. Consent. My mind tried to reject it. Consent for what? A bracelet? A photo? Some harmless school form? Then the man with the folder spoke, voice muffled through glass, but clear enough that each word hit me like a slap. Once the mother signs, the transfer is clean. Transfer. My tongue went numb. My husband answered, low and impatient. She won't sign. Surrey leaned in. Her voice carried a soft confidence that made my skin crawl. You said she would. You said she trusts you. My husband's mouth tightened. She trusts me. She doesn't trust paperwork. The man at the wall shifted, and I saw a badge clipped to his belt, official, but not comforting. The kind of badge that meant forms and authority and doors that closed behind you. The folder man tapped the paper again. Without her signature, you're relying on your affidavit and the supporting statements. Affidavit. Supporting statements. Words from courtrooms and custody battles. Words that don't belong in a child's afternoon. I pressed my fingers to my lips to keep from making a sound. My heart was beating so hard I worried they'd hear it through the wall. My husband reached for another sheet, and the top line flashed in the laptop's glow. Petition for change. Change of what? Suri turned her head slightly, and her sunglasses were gone now, resting on the table. I saw her eyes dark, focused, not warm. She looked at my husband like she was studying a problem, not meeting a family. Her new name is on the second page, she said. Make sure you spell it correctly. New name. The room spun. For a second, I couldn't feel my legs. My brain tried to shove the sentence into a box marked impossible, but my body knew. They weren't introducing Lily to an aunt. They were rewriting her. My husband rubbed his forehead like he was tired, like this was an inconvenience. I know how to spell it. Suri's voice softened, and that softness scared me most. I'm not questioning you. I'm protecting her. We're protecting her. Protecting her? From who? From me, the answer whispered. I watched my husband sign something, his pen moving without hesitation. The man with the folder nodded and flipped to the next page, sliding it forward like a menu. I just need your initial here, the folder man said, confirming the relocation plan. Relocation. My hands went cold. My husband glanced toward the door on the far side of the room, the one Lily had walked through. His voice dropped. She's ready. Suri smiled, and for the first time it wasn't just polite, it was pleased. She's lovely. She thinks this is a game. My throat tightened until I could barely swallow. Lily, in the next room, thinking she was playing while adults carved her life into paperwork. The man at the wall spoke for the first time, his tone clinical. We'll proceed as discussed. If the mother contests, the temporary order stands until the hearing. Temporary order. Hearing. Contest. I couldn't breathe. My marriage, our life, was being translated into legal terms, and I didn't even know the language. My husband's voice turned sharp. She won't contest if she doesn't know. The words landed like a gunshot, but the room didn't react. No one flinched. No one objected. They all accepted it as if secrecy was a normal ingredient. Suri reached across the table and touched my husband's wrist. The gesture was small, intimate, like a wife calming a husband. My vision narrowed until all I could see was that touch. So that was the other lie. Not just the aunt, not just the paperwork. Sir. Suri leaned closer and said something I couldn't fully hear, but I caught the end of it. Start over, all of us. All of us. My husband didn't pull away. He nodded once, a man committing to a future. My stomach heaved. I pressed my forehead against the dusty glass, and the world tilted. I wanted to burst through the door, scream, grab my child, claw my way back to the life I thought I had. But my body wouldn't obey. I froze. Not the dramatic kind of freeze people imagine in movies. Not a heroic pause before action. It was ugly and animal. My muscles locked. My thoughts jammed. I became nothing but eyes, watching my husband erase me in real time. A flash of memory cut through, Lily's drawing on her dresser, the 3 stick figures under the sun. Me, Lily, Dad, all smiling. In that picture, I existed. In this room, I was a problem to be managed. I tried to move my fingers. They wouldn't. I tried to pull back from the window. My knees stayed rooted in gravel. Inside, the folder man gathered papers into a stack and slid them into a thin envelope. My husband took it like it was a receipt. Then Suri stood and walked toward the door that led to Lily. I couldn't see Lily, but I heard the soft murmur of her voice through the wall, bright and trusting. Is Mommy coming too? The question sliced through me, clean and sharp. My body snapped awake. My lungs filled like someone had punched me. My hands unclenched, and pain rushed into my fingers as if they'd been asleep for hours. Mommy. Lily had said mommy, and suddenly everything inside me moved toward one purpose. No. I rose too fast, gravel sliding under my shoes, and the corrugated metal clanged softly against the wall. The sound was tiny, but it was real. Inside, voices paused. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I only knew the quiet life was gone, and my daughter was calling for me from behind a door I had no right to hesitate before. Whatever waited inside, I would not be silent again today. I stepped toward the entrance, heart raging, and reached for the handle. The handle was cold and slick under my palm, like the building itself didn't want to be touched. I turned it anyway. The door opened into a short hallway lit by harsh fluorescent light that made everything look sickly and too real. The air smelled like recycled cold, air conditioning, and something faintly antiseptic, like a clinic pretending it wasn't one. My footsteps sounded wrong on the floor, too loud, too final. For a heartbeat, no one noticed me. Then Surrey appeared at the end of the hall, stepping out of the room where Lily's voice had come from. She stopped like she'd hit an invisible wall, her eyes widening just enough to show surprise before she smoothed it into control. My husband's voice floated behind her, irritated mid-sentence. Just keep her calm, okay? Tell her it's... He stepped into view. The moment our eyes met, something in his face flickered. Not guilt, not fear, calculation. His mouth opened, and for a second I saw the man I married, the one who carried Lily on his shoulders at the fair, the one who kissed my cheek in the kitchen when he thought no one was watching. Then that softness shut like a door. "What are you doing here?" he said. Not "are you okay?" Not "how did you get here?" Just the question you ask when someone ruins your plan. Behind him, the folder man stood frozen with papers half stacked, and the man with the badge shifted his weight as if preparing for a problem. The hallway suddenly felt narrow, like the walls were leaning in to listen. I didn't answer my husband right away. My eyes went past him, searching, desperate. "Where is Lily?" I asked, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. Surrey took a step forward, palms open in a gesture that pretended to be peace. "She's fine," she said softly. "She's..." "Don't," I cut in. The word surprised even me. It didn't sound like the wife who swallows questions. It sounded like a mother with teeth. My husband's jaw tightened. "Babe, calm down." Calm down, those two words had been used on me for years like a leash. Don't get emotional. Don't make a scene. Be the reasonable one so he can do whatever he wants and still feel like the good guy. I took a step farther into the hallway, forcing my legs to work. "Where is my daughter?" Surrey glanced over her shoulder toward the room to her left. "She's in there," she said, voice still gentle. "She's not in danger." "Then let me see her," I said. My husband moved fast, blocking the doorway with his body like he'd done outside, like it was instinct now. "You can't just barge in here," he said, anger rising, sharp and contained. "You're trespassing." Trespassing, in the same breath as my child. My vision blurred with heat. I'm her mother. He leaned closer, lowering his voice like this was a private argument we could keep tidy. "You're making this worse." "Worse for who?" I could hear Lily faintly now, a little laugh, then a pause, like she'd sensed the change in air. I turned my head and called, "Lily." Her voice came back immediately, bright with relief. "Mommy." The sound of it cracked something in me, and I stepped forward again. My husband grabbed my arm. Not hard enough to leave a bruise, just hard enough to control. The way you hold onto something that might slip. "Stop," he hissed through his teeth, eyes wide now, not with fear but with fury. "You're not thinking." I looked down at his hand on my arm and then back up at his face. "Let go." He didn't. Surrey's tone shifted slightly, like she was annoyed at how messy this was becoming. "We didn't want to do it like this," she said. "But since you're here, we can explain." "Who are you?" I snapped, and my own voice shook now, anger pushing through panic. "Don't say aunt, don't say family. Who are you?" Surrey's mouth tightened. "I'm someone who cares about Lily." My husband flinched at her wording, like she'd stepped too close to the truth. I stared at him. You told our daughter to keep secrets from me. He scoffed, a quick, ugly sound. I didn't. She said her name is Surrey, I said louder. She said you promised her a bracelet if she was extra good. You brought her here like a delivery. My throat closed around the word, because saying it would make it undeniable. My husband's expression changed again. He sighed like I was exhausting him. Then his eyes softened, and I recognized the shift instantly. The performance. Okay, he said, voice gentler, almost pleading. You're spiraling. This is not what you think. Gaslighting has a smell. It's the scent of your own doubt being used against you. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. I saw the papers. Silence. It lasted half a second, but it hit like a punch. My husband's face went still. The folder man cleared his throat. The badge man watched me with a new kind of attention, like I'd just stepped into an official category. Obstacle. My husband's voice dropped. You were spying. I followed you, I corrected, and my hands finally stopped trembling because the anger was holding them steady. Because you lied. You lied about an aunt that doesn't exist. Surrey's eyes narrowed. Language like that isn't helpful. I snapped my gaze to her. Don't tell me what's helpful. You're sitting at a table with my husband talking about a transfer and a relocation plan like my child is a suitcase. My husband's grip tightened. Lower your voice. No, I said, and the word came from somewhere deep and fierce. Let go. Maybe it was my tone. Maybe it was the way I stopped asking and started commanding. Whatever it was, he released me, hands lifting in mock surrender. There, he said, voice tight. Happy. I didn't answer. I pushed past him toward the room where Lily was. He moved to block me again, but this time I was ready. I stepped sideways and shoved the door open with my shoulder. The room was small, colder than the hallway, and Lily sat at a table with coloring pages spread out like this was some cheerful waiting room. She looked up, eyes wide, and her face lit with relief so intense it hurt. Mommy, she squealed, jumping down. I crossed the space in 2 steps and dropped to my knees, pulling her into my arms so tight she squeaked. I breathed her in strawberry shampoo, school dust, the realness of her. My hands checked her without thinking, head, arms, shoulders, whole, warm, mine. She wriggled back to look at my face. Daddy said we were meeting Auntie Surrey, she said, confused now, voice wobbling. Are you mad? I swallowed. No, baby, I lied, because she didn't deserve the truth like a blade. I'm not mad at you, I missed you. Behind me, my husband's footsteps entered, heavy. Surrey followed, standing just inside the doorway like she belonged here. Lily glanced between us, reading the tension the way kids do, like weather. She clutched her bracelet, suddenly unsure if she was allowed to like it. My husband tried again, softer. See, she's fine, no one's hurting her. I stood, keeping Lily behind my legs, my body instinctively forming a shield. Then what is this? I asked, voice shaking now with something more dangerous than fear. Certainty. What are those documents? What were you signing? His face hardened. It's complicated. Surrey stepped forward. We were trying to do this responsibly, she said. We wanted what's best for Lily. And you decided that without me, I said. My husband's eyes flashed, because you would have ruined it. There it was, the truth slipping out between his teeth. Lily made a small sound behind me, like a whimper swallowed. My heart broke and sharpened at the same time. I knelt again, turned to her, forced my voice gentle. Sweetheart, go stand by the chair, okay? Just for a second. She obeyed, hugging herself, eyes darting to her father with a loyalty that made me ache. When I faced my husband again, my voice dropped low. You were going to take her. You were going to change her name. His jaw worked. He glanced toward the folder man as if deciding how much to admit. Then he looked back at me with that chilling calm people use when they think they're right. I'm her father, he said. I can make choices too. She's our child, I said, and the word "our" sounded like a fight, not a negotiation. He spread his hands. You don't understand what's at stake. Then make me understand, I said. Right now. The badge man shifted, clearing his throat. Ma'am, he began, careful. Perhaps we should step outside. No, I snapped, eyes never leaving my husband. No more stepping away, no more later. My husband's gaze flicked to Lily, then back to me, and I saw it. He was weighing options. Damage control versus force, lies versus threats. And I realized I was trapped in a moment that would decide everything. Because I could grab Lily, run for the door, and pray I could get us out before anyone stopped me. Or I could stand my ground, demand the truth, and risk what he might do when his plan collapsed. My daughter's soft sniffle filled the cold room, and the air tightened around us like a noose. I had seconds to choose. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The room held its breath with us, fluorescent light buzzing, cold air humming, Lily's tiny sniffles like a metronome counting down my patience. My husband looked at me the way people look at a fire they didn't expect to start. Angry, frantic, and already thinking about how to contain it. You're doing this in front of her, he said, voice low. Do you want to traumatize our daughter? There it was, his favorite trick. Turn my protection into a crime. Make my fear the problem. I swallowed the rage rising in my throat and forced my voice calm because I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. Then talk, I said. Tell me what you're doing, and do not lie, not one more time. Suri's eyes flicked to my husband, impatient, like she was waiting for him to handle me. The folder man shifted, clearing his throat. Perhaps it would be best if... Not you, I snapped, and he shut his mouth. My husband exhaled, long and theatrical, as if he were the exhausted adult in a room of unreasonable children. Okay, he said. Fine, you want the truth? The truth is you don't know everything about me. I laughed once sharp. No kidding. His eyes flashed. I mean it. My past. My family. The stuff I didn't bring into this marriage because I didn't want it to poison us. And yet here we are, I said, gesturing at the cold room, the papers, the strangers. He rubbed his face, dragging his palms down like he could wipe away consequences. Suri isn't my aunt, he admitted finally. The words landed and still didn't feel like enough, because I already knew that. I needed the why. She's someone I knew, he continued, and his voice stumbled on the lie he almost chose. Someone from before. Before me, I said. He nodded once, barely. Suri stepped forward, chin high. We don't have time for this, she said. The temporary order. I turned my head and cut her off with a look so cold it surprised even me. You don't speak to me about my child, I said, each word measured. Not until I decide you get to. My husband's gaze darted to Lily. She sat frozen near the chair, clutching the bracelet like it might keep the adults from exploding. Her eyes were wide, trying to understand a world that suddenly didn't feel safe. My heart cracked again. I forced myself to soften my voice, even as fury churned. Lily, sweetheart, can you cover your ears for me? I asked gently, just like when Daddy talks about boring grown-up stuff. She hesitated, looked at her father. He gave a tight nod, like he was granting me that small mercy. Lily lifted her hands to her ears, but her fingers were thin and her arms trembled. She could still hear. She would still feel everything. My husband took a step toward me, lowering his voice. This isn't how I wanted you to find out. No, I said, voice like steel. You wanted me not to. He flinched. I wanted to protect you. The word protect was poison now, sweet on the tongue, deadly underneath. Start, I said, from the beginning. He stared at the floor for a second, then spoke in fragments, like pulling splinters out of his own skin. Before I met you, he began, I was in trouble. What kind of trouble? I asked. His jaw worked. Money. Of course, money always made people do ugly things. It turned love into leverage, family into currency. I had a business idea, he said quickly, as if speed could make it sound less stupid. A friend and I invested. It fell apart. I owed people. People, I repeated, or someone. His eyes flicked to Suri. Suri's lips pressed together, and for the first time I saw a crack in her control, annoyance tinged with something else. Ownership. I didn't know she was connected at the time, my husband said. Not at first. I thought it was just a loan. A loan, I echoed. From her. He shook his head. From her family, from her uncle. He had connections, money, and he swallowed. I was desperate. Desperate. Another word that people use like an excuse, like it erased choices. And Surrey, I asked. He hesitated. Surrey was the way in. Surrey's eyes narrowed. Don't talk about me like I'm a door, she said sharply. My husband ignored her, pushing forward. She helped me. She vouched for me. She believed in me. And you slept with her, I said, because the truth was already writing itself in my chest. His face twitched. It wasn't like that. I stared until he broke. Yes, he said, voice flat. Yes, for a while. The room tilted, not because I hadn't suspected, but because betrayal is different when it becomes confirmed. A suspicion is a shadow. A confession is a body. I drew a slow breath through my nose. So you cheated. It was before you, he said quickly. Before us. But she's here now, I said, gesturing at Surrey. And you brought our daughter to her. His voice rose, frustration spilling. Because you don't understand. This isn't about romance. This is about survival. Survival. The contrast hit me like a slap. I had spent years thinking survival meant paying bills, keeping peace, making dinner even when you were tired. For him, survival meant deals and secrets and using our child as a bargaining chip. Explain, I said, and my own voice shook now, not with fear but with disbelief. He dragged a hand through his hair. I thought I escaped it, he said. When I met you, I wanted a clean life, a normal life. I cut ties. I changed numbers. I moved. I took a regular job. I tried. Tried, like goodness was a hobby. But debt doesn't forget you, he continued, eyes sharp now. They found me. Her uncle found me. Surrey found me. Surrey's jaw tightened. I did find you, she said. You came back. My husband shot her a look, because I had no choice. No choice, I repeated. You always say that when you don't want to admit you chose. His hands clenched. They wanted money, I didn't have it. Then they wanted collateral. My blood turned to ice. Collateral. He didn't look at Lily. He couldn't. He stared at the table instead, at the neat stack of papers that had almost swallowed my child. They said if I couldn't pay, I could give them something else, he said, voice cracking. Something valuable. I felt bile rise. And you thought our daughter was something you could give. His face snapped up, furious. No, God, no, you're twisting it. Then what is this? I demanded, gesturing at the room. A relocation plan, a new name, a temporary order. He swallowed hard. It's not like I'm selling her. The fact that he had to say it out loud made me want to scream. Surrey spoke, calm and certain, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. He's exaggerating, she said. No one is taking Lily. We're offering stability. I stared at her. Stability, I repeated, incredulous. Yes, she said, stepping closer, voice smooth. A safer environment, resources, education, a future. He's her father. He has rights. And you, her eyes flicked over me, assessing. You have limitations. Limitations. That's what I was to her. Not a mother, not a person. A problem with boundaries. My husband jumped in, desperate to control the story again. It's about protecting her, he said. My debt, my past could catch up. I can't have Lily exposed to that. So your solution is to remove her from her mother, I said, voice shaking with fury, and hand her to the woman you slept with and the people you owe. It's not a handoff, he insisted. It's a guardianship arrangement, temporary until I fix things. Guardianship, temporary, words people use to make theft sound polite. And the new name, I asked. He hesitated, then said, it's for paperwork, for privacy. For erasing me, I said, and the truth tasted like blood. He stepped closer, eyes pleading now. Listen, you don't know what these people can do. If I don't cooperate, they'll ruin us. They'll hurt us. You already hurt us, I said, voice low. You built a whole second life under my nose. His mouth opened, then closed, because he couldn't deny it. I looked back on the past like it was a crime scene. The late nights he blamed on work, the sudden business trips that didn't line up, the times he'd snapped when I asked simple questions, the way he'd kept his family vague, his history thin, his phone locked tight. All the small compromises I'd made to keep peace, those weren't kindness. They were access. He had used my trust as camouflage. My throat tightened as another memory surfaced, the way he always praised me for being easy, for not being dramatic, for not making problems. He hadn't loved my calm. He'd loved my silence. I stared at him, really seeing him now, not as my husband, not as Lily's dad, but as a man who believed control was the same thing as protection. And the worst part was realizing how much I'd helped him. Every time I swallowed a question, I made his lies easier. Every time I told myself love meant patience, I gave him room to hide. Every time I chose peace over clarity, I trained him that secrecy worked. I had built my life around normal. He had built his around deception. My hands curled into fists at my sides, and I felt something inside me shift, not breaking, not crumbling. Hardening. Because now I understood, this wasn't a single lie. It was a structure. And my trust had been the foundation he stood on while he tried to take my daughter away. The moment I understood it wasn't a single lie, something in my fear clicked into place. Fear stopped being a storm inside me and became a tool. I looked at Lily first. She was still by the chair, hands half covering her ears the way I'd asked, but her eyes were glued to my husband's face. She wasn't listening to words anymore. She was reading weather. Kids always do. They learn early which tone means danger, which smile means pretend. Her bracelet glittered when she moved her wrist, a tiny leash made to look like a prize. I forced my face into something Lily could survive. Calm, controlled, not soft, never soft right now, but steady. If I panicked, she would panic. If she panicked, they would use it. My husband's eyes stayed on me, wary. He was gauging whether I would explode or fold. He had lived with me long enough to predict my patterns, apologize, swallow, patch the leak. Not today. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't give him an opening to label me hysterical. Instead, I did what he never expected. I lied better than he did. I let out a slow breath and said almost gently, "Okay." Surrey blinked, thrown off. The folder man's shoulders loosened like he'd expected the storm to pass. My husband's expression flickered between triumph and suspicion. "Okay," he repeated. I nodded once small. "Okay," I said again, like the word was a bridge. "I hear you. I didn't know. I didn't understand." I watched his face as I spoke, looking for the moment he wanted to believe. People who lie for a living love being lied to, if it serves them. He swallowed, voice softening. "Thank you," he said, like I'd finally come to my senses. "This is all I wanted, for you to just trust me." Trust me, the same rope he'd been tightening around my life. "I need a second," I said, placing my hand on my chest as if I was overwhelmed. I'm dizzy." He leaned forward, concern flashing, real or not, I couldn't tell. "Sit down." "I can't," I said. "I need water, Lily too." I turned my head slightly toward my daughter, keeping my voice warm. "Baby, are you thirsty?" Lily nodded immediately, relieved to be offered something normal. "Can I have juice?" "Sure," I said. "We'll get you something." My husband stepped aside a fraction, as if granting permission. Surrey's gaze sharpened. She didn't trust my calm. "There's water," the folder man offered, pointing to a small counter in the corner where a plastic dispenser sat beside paper cups. I nodded toward it. "Thank you." Then I added like an afterthought, "Can Lily come with me? She's scared." My husband's jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. "She's fine." Lily took a small step toward me anyway, instinct pulling her to my side. I slid my hand behind her back and felt her tiny spine stiff with tension. "She's with me," I said softly, not asking. Surrey's eyes flicked to the badge man. I saw their silent communication, Watch her. Fine, watch me. Watching didn't stop me from thinking. We walked to the dispenser. My hands shook as I filled the cup, but I hid it by turning my body. I handed Lily water first, watching her sip, watching her throat move. I needed to see her alive and here and real. Then I took a sip myself to make the act convincing. Cold water, cold fear. As Lily drank, I angled my phone in my palm, screen hidden against my leg. My thumb moved quickly, quietly. I didn't call yet. Calls could be heard. Calls could be stopped. But I could do something else. I opened the camera. I didn't point it like a weapon. I let it hang low, recording the room. The papers on the table, the envelope, the laptop glow, Suri's face, my husband's face, the badge on the man's belt. Proof, evidence, a lifeline. My heart pounded so hard I worried the phone would shake, but I steadied it against my thigh and kept recording. A few seconds, 10, 15. Then my husband spoke again, impatience creeping back in. Now that you've calmed down, he said, we can talk like adults. Adults, as if adults quietly erase mothers. I turned, cup in hand, and walked back with Lily tucked close. I kept my body between her and them. I need to take her to the bathroom, I said. She's nervous. My husband's eyes narrowed. Here. Unless you want her to have an accident, I said lightly, a small laugh. I even shrugged like this was silly. Normal. Lily looked up at me, confused. She wasn't sure why I was acting like everything was okay when everything wasn't. I squeezed her hand once, a silent message. Follow me. The badge man shifted. There's a restroom down the hall, he said, pointing. Great, I said. Thank you. My husband stepped toward us. I'll come. That made my skin crawl. I forced myself not to react, not to show it. No, I said softly. Please, she's 7. I gave him a look, a wife's look, intimate, familiar. Give us 2 minutes. He hesitated. His pride wrestled with his paranoia. In the end, pride won. He nodded sharply and stepped back. 2 minutes, that was all I had. I led Lily down the hallway, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like insects. My footsteps were quiet now, careful. At the restroom door, I pushed it open and ushered Lily inside. The room was small, plain, and blessedly empty. A single sink, a single stall, no window. Lily turned to me immediately, eyes wet. Mommy, she whispered, why is Daddy mad? I crouched, gripping her shoulders gently but firmly. Listen to me, I said, voice low and steady. You are not in trouble, okay? You didn't do anything wrong. Her lip trembled. But Auntie Suri. No, I said and softened it quickly. No, sweetheart, just listen. I pulled my phone up and texted with shaking fingers, keeping my voice calm as I spoke to Lily. Mom, call me. Emergency, don't ask why. Call police if I don't answer in 5 minutes. My mother lived 20 minutes away. She didn't always like my husband, but she respected him. I needed her to stop respecting him today. I hit send. Then I did the next thing, harder. I opened my location sharing, selected my sister, and shared my live location. No explanation, just coordinates. If something happened to me, someone would know where to look. Lily watched my hands, puzzled. Are we leaving? She asked, hopeful and scared. My throat tightened. Yes, I said, we're going to go home. But Daddy will meet us later, I lied, because truth would make her panic. Right now, I need you to do exactly what I say. She nodded, quick, obedient. Her trust in me was a weight and a gift. I stood, glanced at the door. No sounds outside. Good. I pulled Lily's bracelet gently, turning it so I could see the clasp. Tiny, cheap, the kind of thing you buy in bulk. I wanted to rip it off, throw it into the toilet, flush it like the poison it was. But I didn't, not yet, not with eyes on us. Instead, I leaned close and whispered, if anyone asks, you just say you need the bathroom again. Okay? Or your stomach hurts, anything, but you stay with me. Lily nodded again, swallowing hard. I opened the restroom door a crack and listened. The hallway was empty. The fluorescent hum filled my ears. I stepped out with Lily and started walking. Not back toward the room, but toward the exit I'd entered through. The building was simple, short hallway, a couple of doors, then the entrance. We walked fast, but not running. Running would scream guilt. Running would trigger pursuit. I kept my posture composed, my pace brisk like a mother guiding her child in a public place. Halfway down the hall, my husband's voice snapped behind us. "Where are you going?" I didn't turn fully. I just angled my head, letting him hear the calm in my voice. "To the car," I said. "She's overwhelmed. I'm taking her home. We'll talk tonight." I heard footsteps, his quick. "No," he said sharply. "Not like that." Not like that, meaning not with me in control. I turned now fully and met his eyes. "Like what?" I asked softly. "Like a mother taking her daughter home." His face was tight, anger rising, but there was something else too, fear. Not fear for Lily, fear of losing his plan. Suri's heels clicked behind him. "You can't leave," she said, voice cool. "This is in process." In process, like my child was paperwork. I kept my voice even. "Watch me." My husband stepped closer, lowering his voice into a hiss. "You're making a mistake." I smiled slightly, the kind of smile you give a bully when you stop being afraid. "No," I said. "I'm correcting one." Then I did the riskiest thing. I reached into my pocket, lifted my phone just enough for him to see the screen, still recording. His eyes flicked to it and his face changed. A flash of panic. "I have everything," I said quietly. "Touch us and that video goes everywhere." Suri froze. The badge man appeared in the doorway behind them, alert now. My husband stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. Maybe I finally was. I took Lily's hand and walked backward toward the entrance, never turning my back, never giving them an opening. My heart hammered, but my steps stayed measured. At the door, I pulled it open, and sunlight hit my face like freedom. We crossed the yard fast. Gravel crunched under our shoes. My car sat where I'd left it beyond the gate, tucked out of sight, but the distance felt enormous. "Mommy," Lily whispered, voice trembling, "are we in trouble?" I squeezed her hand. "No," I whispered back. "I've got you." Behind us, I heard my husband call my name. Angry, pleading, desperate. All the same sound now. I didn't stop. We reached the gate, slipped through, and I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until the chain link closed behind us. I got Lily into the car, buckled her in with hands that finally shook openly, and slid into the driver's seat. My fingers fumbled the keys twice before the engine caught. As I pulled away, dust rising behind us like a curtain, I looked in the mirror and saw my husband standing at the gate, staring after us with a face I didn't recognize. We had escaped. Barely. But even as relief flooded me, another truth settled heavy in my chest. This wasn't over. It was only the beginning of the war. The drive home felt like fleeing a burning house with smoke still in my lungs. Every time a car pulled behind me, my shoulders tightened, expecting to see my husband's sedan in the mirror like a shadow that wouldn't let go. Lily sat quiet in the back seat, bracelet glinting on her wrist, her small face turned toward the window as if she could will the world back into something simple. I wanted to tell her everything was fine. But lies were his weapon, and I wouldn't put one in my daughter's hands. When we reached our street, the afternoon looked exactly the same as it had that morning. Neighbors' lawns, parked cars, the soft, ordinary light. The contrast made me nauseous. It's a special kind of horror when danger lives behind a familiar door. Inside, I locked the deadbolt the second we stepped in. Then I locked the chain. Then I checked the windows, even though we never did that in daylight. My hands were moving on instinct, building barriers out of metal because the emotional ones had failed. Lily hovered in the hallway, watching me, her voice small. "Is Daddy coming?" "Not right now," I said, kneeling so my face was level with hers. I forced my voice gentle, steady. "Sweetheart, I need you to do something for me. Can you go to your room and watch a show for a little while? The loud kind." "Okay." She hesitated, eyes wet. "Did I do something bad?" My heart squeezed. "No," I said quickly, touching her cheek. No, baby, you did nothing wrong. I just need a grown-up minute. She nodded, the way children nod when they don't understand but want to be good anyway. She walked toward her room, slippers scuffing the floor. At her doorway, she paused and looked back at me like she was memorizing me, making sure I was still there. I love you, she whispered. I love you more, I said, and meant it like a vow. When her door clicked shut and the muffled sound of cartoons started, the quiet inside me finally shattered. My phone buzzed with a missed call from my mother, then another, then my sister. My hands shook as I called my mom back. Where are you? She demanded the second she answered. What is going on? You texted emergency and… I have Lily, I said, and the relief in my mother's exhale nearly made me cry. Is he there? No, I said. Not yet. Mom, he tried to… My throat tightened. The words were too ugly to say. He tried to do something with papers with another woman. They were talking about changing Lily's name. Silence on the line, thick and disbelieving. That doesn't make sense, my mother whispered. I know, I said, voice trembling. But I recorded it, I saw it, I was there. My mother's voice hardened. Call the police. The suggestion hit me like a door slamming. Police meant real. Police meant no going back to the life where you fix leaks quietly and pretend the ceiling isn't sagging. I don't know if they'll believe me, I said. Then you make them believe you, she snapped. You don't wait, you don't talk to him, you don't let him in that house. I swallowed hard. Can you come over? I'm already in the car, she said, and I almost collapsed with relief. When I hung up, I didn't sit down. I couldn't. I moved through the house like a person packing for a storm, gathering what mattered, preparing for impact. Lily's birth certificate, her passport, the folder with our marriage license and insurance papers. I didn't know exactly what I needed yet. I only knew I couldn't afford to be unprepared. My phone buzzed again. My husband. His name on the screen looked like a threat. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again and again. Finally, I answered because I needed to hear his tone, to know which version of him was coming. He didn't start angry. He started soft. Where are you? He asked, like a concerned husband. Like I was the one who had vanished with no explanation. At home, I said, voice flat. A pause, then, why did you leave like that? The audacity of it made my hands go cold. He spoke as if I'd overreacted to a misunderstanding, as if I'd stormed out of a family dinner. You lied to me, I said. He sighed. You followed me. You lied, I repeated firmer. He lowered his voice, coaxing. Babe, you misunderstood what you saw. It's complicated and you… Don't, I said, and the word came out sharp enough to cut. Don't rewrite this. I heard you. I saw the papers. I heard the words relocation and new name. Silence. Then his tone changed, the softness draining away. You recorded me, he said, and now there was anger, hot, personal. You violated my privacy. My privacy. He had tried to erase me from my child's life, and he was worried about privacy. You involved our daughter, I said. You made her keep secrets. He snapped. Don't put this on me. You're the one making Lily scared. You barged in like a lunatic. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. Watch your words. Or what? He challenged. You'll call the cops. You'll tell people I'm some monster. The way he said monster, mocking, daring, made my stomach twist. He still believed he could intimidate me back into silence. Then he went for the deepest cut. You're unstable right now. You know that. Following me, spying, recording, if you call anyone, you'll look crazy. Truth versus distortion. There it was, the war. He wasn't fighting for Lily. He was fighting for the story. My voice dropped low. I'm not crazy, I said. I'm awake. He scoffed. Let me come home, we'll talk like adults. Lily needs her father. The way he used Lily as a shield made my skin crawl. No, I said. What do you mean no? His voice sharpened. I mean you're not coming in this house, I said, and my heart hammered but my words didn't shake. Not today. You can't keep my daughter from me, he hissed. My daughter, I repeated, and I heard myself, how possessive I sounded. But possession wasn't what I wanted. Safety was. Our daughter, I corrected, forcing the words through. And you put her in danger. He laughed, short and cruel. Danger from who? Papers, you're ridiculous. Then his voice lowered into something that made my blood run cold. If you do this the hard way, you'll regret it. Threat. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, a threat. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch until I could hear his breathing, impatient. I'm hanging up, I said. Do not come here. He spat my name like a curse. Open the door. No. You think you're stronger than me, he said, and there was something ugly in it, something that had always lived under his calm. In that moment, I saw the truth like a bright line. He wasn't shocked that I knew. He was furious that I'd stopped obeying. I ended the call. Seconds later, my phone buzzed with an incoming message, not from him, but from a number I didn't recognize. It was a screenshot of my husband's location, pinned near our house, and one line beneath it. You can't hide. My throat went tight, my hands went numb. Then another message, this time from my husband's cousin, a woman I barely knew. Hey, he says you're overreacting. That's his aunt. Please don't make this ugly for Lily. His aunt. The lie spreading. Then his sister called. I hadn't spoken to her in months. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail anyway, her voice syrupy and stern at the same time. Whatever you think you saw, you're wrong. You always do this, make problems. Think of your daughter. Think of your daughter. They turned motherhood into a muzzle. I stood in my kitchen with my phone buzzing like a live wire, and I realized he wasn't alone. He had a network. People ready to protect him, to smooth his mess, to paint me as unstable and him as misunderstood. Betrayal isn't just what one person does. It's the chorus that rises to defend it. My mother arrived 20 minutes later, breathless, eyes blazing. My sister came right behind her, hair still damp like she'd run out of the shower. They looked past me into the house like they were checking for intruders. My mom grabbed my shoulders. Show me, she said. I pulled up the video with shaking fingers and played the clearest segment. My husband's voice saying, she won't contest if she doesn't know. Suri's voice saying, her new name is on the second page. The folder man. Once the mother signs, the transfer is clean. My mother's face went pale. My sister's mouth fell open. That's, my sister whispered, that's real. My mother's eyes filled with something older than anger. We're calling a lawyer, she said. Now. And the police, my sister asked. I looked toward the hallway where Lily's laughter rose and fell with the cartoon, fragile and unaware. My chest tightened. If I called the police, my life would explode in public. If I didn't, my husband would keep moving in the dark, and next time he might succeed. Weakness versus backbone. I opened my contacts, found a family friend who worked in law enforcement, and hesitated with my thumb hovering. My husband's words echoed, "You'll look crazy." Then Lily's voice echoed louder in my memory. Is Mommy coming too? I pressed call. When the friend answered, I spoke clearly, forcing steadiness into every syllable. I need help, I said. My husband attempted to initiate an unauthorized custody and identity change involving our child. I have video. I need to file a report and get an emergency protective order. The words felt foreign coming from my mouth. Legal, sharp, irreversible. My mother squeezed my hand like a seal on a promise. As I gave my address, as I described the location, as I said Suri's name out loud like a threat I refused to swallow, I felt the final boundary form inside me, solid, unbreakable. He could twist the story, he could recruit his family, he could threaten. But he would not walk back into my home and rewrite our daughter's life. Not anymore. That night, the house didn't feel like mine. It felt like a shelter I'd built out of locks, light, and stubborn breathing. My mother slept on the couch with her shoes still on. My sister camped in the armchair with her phone charging beside her like a weapon. I stayed awake in my bedroom doorway, watching Lily's chest rise and fall, listening to the tiny sighs she made in her sleep, little sounds that said she still believed the world was mostly good. Outside, headlights swept across the curtains once, twice, as cars passed. Each time my body tensed, ready to fight. When the police arrived, it wasn't dramatic like TV. No sirens, no crowd, just two officers at my door, faces careful, questions steady. I handed them my phone with the video already pulled up, and my hands shook so hard I nearly dropped it. They watched, they listened. And then one of them looked at me with a seriousness that felt like a door closing on my old life. "Ma'am," he said, "you did the right thing calling." I didn't cry, not then. I was too busy staying upright. They took my statement. They wrote names down: Surrey, the location. The words I remembered like scars. They asked about my husband's history, his family, any prior threats. Saying out loud, "He threatened me," made my mouth taste metallic, like shame and truth were sharing the same tongue. But when the officer asked, "Do you fear he'll try to take her again?" my answer came instantly. "Yes," I said, "because he already tried." That sentence changed everything. By midnight, a temporary protective order was in motion. By morning, my husband's access to our home was restricted while the investigation began. The terms felt unreal, like legal language was a costume my life had been forced to wear. But every word in that paperwork did one thing my husband's promises never did. It created consequences. He showed up the next afternoon anyway. Not at the door, he wasn't stupid. He hovered at the edge of the driveway, hands raised, voice carrying as if the neighborhood was his jury. "I just want to see my daughter," he called, loud enough that my next-door neighbor peeked through her blinds. I didn't step outside. I didn't argue from the porch. I stood behind the living room curtain, phone in hand, recording again. My husband looked smaller from a distance, still dangerous, still capable, but smaller. An officer arrived within minutes, because I'd learned how to stop asking for safety and start demanding it. My husband's face shifted as he saw the uniform, anger sharpening into a performance. "She's keeping my child from me," he protested. "She's making this up. She's unstable." The officer didn't look at me like I was unstable. He looked at my husband like he was a man who thought his voice was a key. "Sir," the officer said evenly, "you need to leave." My husband's eyes flicked to the house, to where he knew I was watching. For a moment, something like hatred crossed his face, pure and bright. Then he turned it into something else, something wounded. "This is because of a misunderstanding," he said, softer, like he was pleading now. "I was trying to protect my daughter." Protect again, that word he tried to own. The officer didn't argue. He repeated the boundary. My husband left in a slow, humiliating roll of tires. No triumphant threats, no final speech, just retreat. A narrow win. But the war wasn't only at my doorstep. It was inside every story people told about me. For days, messages poured in, some confused, some cruel. His cousin sent another text, "You're destroying your family." His sister posted vague quotes about women who weaponize children. A friend of his I'd barely met wrote, "He's a good guy. Don't ruin him over drama." Drama. As if my daughter's name had almost been rewritten like a typo. I learned quickly that truth doesn't spread as fast as comfort. People want the version that lets them sleep. So I stopped trying to convince the whole world. I focused on the places truth mattered. The police report, the lawyer's office, the courtroom. My lawyer was a woman with kind eyes and a voice that didn't flinch. She watched the video once and then again, slower. She circled phrases with her pen like she was trapping them on paper. Transfer, relocation plan, new name, temporary order. "These aren't normal," she said quietly, "and this woman's Surrey will matter." Surrey mattered more than I even knew. The investigators traced the location. The property wasn't an aunt's home. It was a rented space under a shell company name tied to Surrey's family. The man with the folder wasn't a family friend. He was a paralegal tied to a private legal firm that specialized in guardianship transfers and relocation facilitation. The badge man wasn't a police officer at all. He was private security, hired to look official enough to intimidate. That detail alone made my skin crawl. How many mothers had been fooled by a badge in the wrong place? When my husband sat across from me in court for the first time, he didn't look like my husband. He looked like someone auditioning for sympathy. He wore a pressed shirt. He held a tissue. He spoke about miscommunication, fear for my child, a wife who panicked. He avoided looking at me directly, like eye contact would be confession. But the video didn't care about his performance. The video played his voice the way it had sounded when he thought I wasn't listening. He won't contest if she doesn't know. The judge's face changed. That was the moment I knew. My husband couldn't gaslight a recording. The ant lie died right there, on a courtroom speaker. His lawyer tried to argue. His family tried to soften it. But evidence has weight, and my instincts had finally led me to something heavier than fear. The consequences unfolded like dominoes. My husband's temporary custody was limited to supervised visits until the investigation concluded. The judge ordered no contact with Surrey or her associates. The court demanded documentation of any debt claims, any threats, any relocation plan. My husband, who had always lived in shadows, was forced into light. And light is cruel to lies. Surrey disappeared quickly after that. Her number went dead. Her social accounts went private. But her name was already in the record, and records don't forget. My husband's family stopped messaging me as much when they realized this wasn't a story they could rewrite. Silence replaced their outrage. That was its own kind of admission. At home, the quiet returned, but it wasn't the quiet I used to crave. Before, quiet meant avoiding conflict. Quiet meant swallowing questions and calling it love. Quiet meant being easy so my marriage wouldn't crack. Now, quiet meant safety earned. It meant Lily laughing in the kitchen again without flinching at a door slam. It meant bedtime stories where her eyes stayed soft, not scanning my face for fear. It meant me teaching her, gently, that secrets are not the same as surprises, and any adult who tells her to hide something from me is not safe. We had hard conversations in small pieces. One night, as I brushed her hair, Lily asked, "Is Auntie Surrey bad?" I paused, choosing truth that wouldn't break her. Auntie Surrey wasn't honest, I said carefully. And when adults aren't honest, they can make unsafe choices. Lily's brows knitted. Is Daddy unsafe? The question landed like a stone in my chest. I swallowed. Daddy made a very bad choice, I said, and my job is to keep you safe, always. She stared at me, then nodded once, solemn, like she was growing older in real time. Then she leaned into me, and I held her until the tightness in my chest eased. I used to think strength was loud, big speeches, dramatic exits. But the mother I became learned something else. Strength is the moment you stop negotiating with fear. Strength is the boundary you set even when your voice shakes. Strength is choosing your child's safety over your own comfort. Strength is letting your old life burn if it was built on lies. I won't pretend I didn't mourn what I lost. The illusion, the marriage I thought I had, the man I believed in. Some nights I still woke up with my heart racing, hearing the word transfer like a siren in my head. Some mornings I looked at Lily's drawing on her dresser, the stick figures under the sun, and I felt grief for the version of us that never existed. But grief wasn't the end of me. It was the proof that I loved deeply, and love, real love, does not require silence. Now my home is quieter, yes, but it's also clearer. There are fewer people at my table, but the ones who remain don't ask me to swallow my instincts. My daughter still wears the bracelet sometimes, not because it holds power over her, but because it reminds me of the day I refused to let anyone rewrite her life. I followed my husband expecting a lie. I found a plan. And I became the kind of mother who doesn't freeze forever. So tell me, if you followed and saw what I saw, what would you have done?